They're
Yep.
great. Oh, good morning,
Quick
everybody.
on the trigger, quick on the draw. Won't go with you in a gunfight.
Yep. This time we got I think we got our sound, so we want to make sure. Good morning, everybody. We've got David with us and Cheryl with us, and it's Sunday, April 19th,
Morning.
2020.
Morning.
Actually, afternoon for all of us because we're all East Coast, but some people are West Coast. So it's morning for them.
Ah,
It's later afternoon. It's whatever. Buongiorno, right? Good day,
Yeah,
whatever.
I'm actually close to you, David. I'm in
oh,
Connecticut.
oh, really? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
Yeah,
I'm right, Brooklyn.
she's where the rich New Yorkers went when all of this
Right.
happened, so they could enjoy their country homes, you
Yes.
know, and their
But I'm
stocked
not living in a
cellars,
country home, not
a-
by a
and
long shot.
and their stocked cellars. You're familiar with all of that, right, David?
Yeah, right.
It's a okay. So let's you know what? Let's first of all, we're usually here to do free readings, and at some point today, we're probably going to do free readings. And I do want to jump into some astrology, and then I want to turn this over to David because I want to tell David that there's astrology to establish what he's doing today that supports something that he needs to focus on in his chart, which is the Mars Poseidon in his chart, and there's actually Mars Poseidon.
Hmm.
There is Mars Poseidon as we speak is kind of one of the things that's happening in the world right now. So let's show that, and then I'm going to turn this over to David because
Okay.
I'm really after David. I'm
Uh-oh.
I'm in a hot
Uh-oh.
pursuit of David for 20 years, like I was after Ruth. And David, you should know that there's no
Yeah.
end in sight until, like you say, last rites over my dead body. That's when it's over. Okay? That's, that's when you can go, okay, finally I can rest. so so there is this um belief and theory that I have, and I am hypothesizing that this is truly the language of God, and this is where the entire world went south. Is that here was this language that was presented to mankind, and mankind, in their effort to control each other, decided to give different interpretations in that same way that we all speak English and somehow misunderstand each other, or we can all speak, say, Spanish or Italian or whatever, and still there can be language miscommunication and misunderstandings. Um,
Right.
right, but in this particular case, I believe that at the beginning of time, uh, that a case could be made that there was this one language, and the one language was the language of the gods, and this was handed down to man, and man said basically, you know what, you guys, you're up there, but we're down here,
Hmm.
and this was, the hubris of man is let
Right.
us do this. And now what's interesting is the planets that are out there and the astrology that I'm clear on, and I am not 100% on everything that I have with respect to the
Mm.
astrology. But the things that I'm 100% on, that I would say, you know what, I would be willing to lay my life down on this belief or this hypothesis, because I believe that if you give me 10,000 charts, I'm going to be able to show you 10,000 times that this is going to be true in this individual or this particular astrological circumstance or situation. And Mars Poseidon, over and over and over again, is going to always be a person who pursues work of a spiritual nature. And David, you have Mars Poseidon in your chart. And every time you try to get away from it, it's going to come back. And right now, the planets are. So this is the chart of today and the world right now. And here's the Mars Poseidon, and here's the node, and here's the Capito. And what we look for is the rule of three in astrology, just like the Trinity. Just like almost every religion has some sort of rule of three, that you have to triangulate everything, otherwise it's just not true.
Right.
Okay. So in astrology, everything has to also be triangulated. Otherwise, it's just not true. Otherwise, it's conjecture, or it's something that's happening around you, or it's wishes and dreams and failed hopes, or it's those times in our lives where we put a lot into something and it just comes out from underneath us. So the energy is there, the planets are there, but without the triple pattern, the event does not happen.
Right.
This is always
Okay.
true in astrology. So now this is today. Now let me show you. Here's the Mars Poseidon. Okay. I always tell
I
all
do.
of
Are you pointing to that?
let
I'm
me
sorry, I didn't mean to
yeah, let
interrupt.
me let me show you. Here's the Mars Poseidon of today.
Okay.
Okay, there you go.
Okay.
Okay.
Here is the node. Here is Capito. So this is going to be node Poseidon and Mars Capito and Mars Poseidon and kind of all of this right to the Aries point. So this is all really speaking about groups and shifts in ideology and work in spirituality. Is somehow trying to work with God, work with the highest authorities. Poseidon is the highest authority, the divine authority, God. Kronos is the legal authority, man-made authority. Poseidon is God. Kronos
Right.
Poseidon is the divine authority together. That's what I was talking to you about German and it being a small language
Mm.
and how they put these things together.
Right.
Right? Okay.
Yes.
So, all right. So here we have this. So now I'm going to bring your chart up and then I'm going to turn this over to you because I wasn't going to, since I'm after you, I wasn't going to let you slide without any astrology here.
Right.
Huh.
Fair game. So let's kind of bring this up and show you that even today, your chart demonstrates this right now.
Oh yeah, it's transiting. I see it on mine
No, it's
too,
not
but
just
just transit.
transiting. David has it in a triple
Well, no,
pattern.
right,
David has it in
right.
a triple pattern this year, so this is repeatedly going to be something that comes up for him. And it is. It's coming up for him in a variety of ways that, he's working through this year. Uh, and there's no question about that. I think
Right.
we're all I believe that we're all working through our belief
Hmm.
systems. We're all sitting here and we're all wondering, while we may not know 100% what's going on, I think each and every one of us has been challenged to review, what do we really believe in? Okay, so this
Right.
is last night. Let's get you to where we are right now, which I think is here. No, that's 4 p.m. That's a little too early. Okay, so let's do 1 o'clock. So here's the Mars Poseidon. David, here's your natal Mars Poseidon. Here's your
Mm-hmm.
directed Mars Poseidon.
Jeez, look at that.
Here's the transiting Mars Poseidon. And within that 1 degree, all of these are going to line up.
Mm.
Okay. And David, my son Poseidon here is here. And my Kronos Poseidon one's right here. And this Uranus
Okay.
Kronos again. This is, you better believe I'm an authority in this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I will definitely before the end of my days work this out. This thing has tortured me and tormented me. No, really. It's driven
Mm.
me if we were to sit down and we were to talk and then the many ties that you and I find through time when we converse with each other.
Right.
Particularly, yeah, it's like our lives have crossed long before Michael.
I
we
wonder if Michael is with us, by the way.
Oh, he's too stealth. He's
Hey, Michael, if you're out there.
you know what? He would if he would do anything, he would message one of us and try to get one of us to laugh.
Right, probably.
If Michael's listening, if he's going to do anything, he is going to private message one of us, and he is going to try to get one of us to laugh in the middle of something very serious. Unless, yeah,
Nothing. Right.
right. Okay. Okay, in the middle of something, Michael, that's what he'll do. Unless unless he's really interested, unless he's intellectually somehow, unless he's thinking, let me look into this. So anyway, I just wanted to show that to you, and with that, I'm going to go ahead and just say this one thing. One of the biggest reasons you're here, aside from the fact that I asked you to be here, is uh, you've been looking for uh, a place to help people during times of crisis and to lead with a spiritual foundation. And that's very, very true about you. And of all the things that I've ever known to be consistent is you've always wanted to serve man and serve God, and you've been frustrated by money and power. And on that note, I'm going to
Yeah,
surrender this to you because look at the fucking mess we're in, David. Okay.
to say the least. I don't
Yeah.
know if you all have been facing the same range of issues that I have since we last were together. Um, you would call it, I guess, a crisis of faith, um, almost giving in to a sense of futility. Why are we even trying? Because we're nothing but pawns in some great big cosmic game. And no matter what we choose to do or think we choose to do,
Mm-hmm.
because that gets into the question of whether we indeed do have free choice. Um, I don't know. It's just been a very difficult week for me. Anna and I have been in touch throughout the week, so she's had to deal with my rumblings or grumblings, or I don't know what you want to call them. I'm just fed up.
Your lack of faith in self. That's what I want to call them.
I think it goes. I think it goes more than. I think it goes deeper than that, and I say that because one of the things that I always prided myself on from as far back as I can remember, I grew up in a family that had no religious or spiritual bent, and I was drawn to it like a moth to a light, and I have never had, quote unquote, a loss of faith until now, where I'm beginning to re-examine everything that has undergirded my life for as long as I can remember. And maybe it has something to do with the health crisis that we're going through. Maybe it has something to do with the fact that everything we seem to hear on television, not only about COVID-19, but about everything, seems to be scripted, and you hear things being repeated over and over again. This is not good for our democracy. This is not good for our democracy. This is not good for our democracy. I wish I had $1 for every time I've heard that phrase repeated on TV. So it seems to me that it's not coincidental at all. I don't believe in coincidence anyway, but I just am beginning to feel that we're pawns. I mean, what do you think about that? Anybody out there, what do you think about that? Do you ever feel that there's no sense in having a spiritual life? I don't know if I'm expressing it the right way. I mean, it just has been a very challenging week for me, and I really can't remember the last time I had a week like this. This was a watershed moment for me this past week. Felt empty,
So,
just totally empty.
so you've had loss before. You've had profound loss before.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, so in times of profound loss, I'm sure you can relate that this is a feeling that is very similar to times of profound loss. Times of
Mm,
profound loss challenge our faith.
mm-hmm.
All
Right,
right. I
right.
think that we would be lying, you know, and this is why I really resent these supposed men of God. I love the Dalai Lama who says, "Yeah, I get mad." I like him. He says, "Yeah, I'm a spiritual man. Of course I get mad. Of
Right,
course I get angry. And of course I question God. And of course I question whether or not there is a God."
right,
He says,
right.
"But I know this. I know that life is better when I believe that I'm here for something and with others, and to just not harm anybody or anything.
Mm,
It's just better that way." But we've run into a problem. See, we ran into kind of a sticky little wicket with political correctness here,
right.
you
Mm-hmm.
know? A-
Yes.
And an unwillingness, as you know, I shared some things with you yesterday, which I believed was a failure. There was a whole big focus on some political correctness and a failure to address like enormous elephants in the room, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like I was trying to say, I was being very, very focused about, and this is a soul stealing moment for America, by the way.
Yeah.
Okay. It is a soul stealing moment for the entire world that we are not demanding to know what the fuck happened with Jeffrey Epstein.
Mm-hmm.
It is soul stealing that we are not down at every facility where they are holding children and violating human rights.
Okay.
These are soul stealing moments where we're just kind of sitting back going, but you know what? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? And this is what happens is pieces of our soul go missing because we somehow think that there's nothing we can do. There's plenty we can do. Number one, we can talk to each other. We can agree or disagree that this is either acceptable or this is unacceptable. Once we get there, so if it's acceptable, we do nothing. If it's unacceptable, we now have to start discussing options.
Right. Now, what bothers you about, and I don't want to turn this into a political discussion because politics, quite frankly, bores me. But
But
uh,
politics are running, they're running the world and God. And one of the things I said is, I said, talk to us about the division of church and state. That's a bunch of fucking bullshit. You're a
right,
lawyer.
right,
It's a big bullshit thing. It's okay. First of all, in God we trust. The how do they get sworn in?
right,
Oh, all right. The I pledge allegiance to the flag. This crap.
right,
We talked about this, I think, a couple of weeks ago, or we talked about this even last week. Again, the first thing that happens when everybody comes here is if you don't all of a sudden
mm-hmm,
assimilate, if you're not hanging out your Christmas lights and putting out your pumpkins and doing everything that you're supposed to do with all of these commercialized American holidays, then everybody's looking sideways at you.
right,
And this is being driven into you by who? By corporations. I thought this was supposed to be the land of the free, the home of the brave. Come here. You're free to be whatever you want to be, free from persecution. And
mm-hmm,
that is a bunch of bullshit. And this is the problem. You say that politics bores you. Here's the problem. We're not telling the truth. We're not
yeah,
telling the truth about politics. We're not telling the truth about religion. We're not telling the truth about anything. We're not telling the truth about media. We're not telling the truth about government. We're not telling the truth. We're not
Right.
telling the truth about ourselves. Why the fuck are we all trying to be like each other? What the hell happened to we can be okay but by being who we're supposed to be? And I promise you, in everybody's chart, you have two options.
Mm-hmm.
There's free will. There's two dates with destiny. You're gonna be born and you're gonna die.
Right.
And all of this stuff that happens in between, there is a literal positive and negative. David, if you look at what I sent you, there's always a positive and negative.
Yeah.
And the positive and the negative is, and this is the way, and I have hypothesized this, and I really want to get a group of astrologers that are more serious about the work and less focused on, making money and selling astrology. Let's unfold this. We have plenty of charts and plenty of information, and certainly plenty of people that are willing to share their charts with us
Mm-hmm.
and their lives with us. So let's unfold this. The negative is man's footsteps through their chart, and the positive is God's footsteps through their chart.
Right. But let me go back to what I was going to say before I stopped myself and
You
made
shouldn't.
made a caveat. Um, what is it that bothers you about the Jeffrey Epstein case? What is it that bothers you? I mean, he was a pedophile. He was the head of a pedophile ring, which has a lot of very prominent people involved in it. I think all of us can agree on that. He was a pimp, basically, for high and powerful people whose names are found in that black book, which has been censored.
Mm-hmm. So you really want to? What bothers me? What
Yes.
bothers me is I was a 15-year-old girl and then a 16-year-old girl, and I was in Miami, and everything they're talking about is absolutely true. What
Yeah.
bothers me is that I, as a 60-year-old woman, can tell you that
Mhm.
in Miami in 1976, we had a term. We young girls knew the one thing you wanted to avoid was what we called the Argentinian Express. And the Argentinian Express was you end up somewhere without your passport and now you're a slave.
Yeah, a sex slave.
Yep. Or a housekeeper,
Right.
or a nanny, or
Right.
a farm worker.
Mm-hmm.
There are a myriad of reasons why someone will enslave you.
Right.
If they can't use you for sex, there's things they can use you for.
Sure.
And listen, if they can't use you for work or anything else, not to worry. We have organ donations.
Right.
Like, people really need to wake up. So when somebody says, what bothers you about the Epstein thing? What
Yeah.
bothers me about the Epstein thing is Ken Starr being in Miami getting blowjobs from 15-year-olds in the 70s.
Right.
What bothers me, okay? And that this guy was all concerned about Clinton getting a blowjob.
Right.
What bothers me is what I've seen in my life. What
Mm.
bothers me is the fact that there's no real white or black.
Mm-hmm.
There's this just swath of gray area in the world that everybody needs to kind of accept. Listen, there's a lot of people doing some shady shit trying to uncover some really, really dark stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's a lot of people doing some shady shit trying to get into really dark stuff.
Right.
Okay? Then there's a lot of people trying to do some really good things that don't understand that they're about to be consumed by some very dark forces. What bothers me is that that pedophiles and predators actually do run the world, because that's the thing that everybody's afraid of.
Right.
That's the thing that nobody wants those pictures out there where they're with, they get caught cheating, they get a divorce.
Right.
They get caught pictures with a child, or raping someone or doing something more vile. Remember something, there are men out there with some pretty violent tastes. That was something too we used to hear about. We used to hear women in Miami used to be told stories about men that had just vile tastes. Like I knew because I was dating this drug trafficker, so you would hear these stories about, oh yeah, that guy, be careful with that guy. And I'd sit and I would say, well, why do these girls go with them? And they would be like, money, coke. I'd be like, but if he's got a reputation all over the city for beating women up or cutting women up, or he's even got a reputation for having killed a few women,
Right.
why?
Right.
And they're like, because nobody stops them.
Right.
So when you ask me, why am I so bothered? This is what happens when nobody stops them.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
Bill Gates has ties to him.
Right.
Okay, and nobody's asking. What bothers me is nobody's asking the right questions. What bothers me is I'm not that stupid. I don't like Bill Gates out there, this guy who's got like no medical license. And here, I'm going to put this to you. You're an attorney. Any one of us tries to do what this guy's doing, they're indicted for practicing medicine without a license. Okay.
Correct. Well, you don't even have to go to him. Everyone is in love with Dr. Phil. Dr. Phil is not licensed to be a psychologist.
Yes, I saw that.
He was
Yeah.
stripped of his license, and he is not, in any case, he is not qualified. Forget about not having a license, which means he can't do what he's doing. But he certainly wouldn't be able to do it on television because of confidentiality requirements in psychological treatment. He is not a psychiatrist. He's not a counselor. I think clinical counseling he had a degree in, but he was stripped of his license for some reason, which I never bothered to look into. Look, if the thing that bothers you and bothers all of us is that things are not as they are portrayed to be, well, this has been an issue with humanity since the beginning. I mean, hypocrisy is not anything new. Do as I say, not as I do. Yeah,
Who was it, Aristotle or Plato? I forget which one of them was a big depopulation guy, and there was like nobody on the planet. They were already depopulating back then. Okay.
Yeah, but this has been around for a long, long time. I wanted also to say something about.
But do you understand though? If we allow it, David.
Yeah.
That's the part. The part is, it's now in front of everybody's face.
Right.
And I'm pretty sure it was Edmund Burke. He's the one, and I know I use this quote over and over again. Evil prevails when good men do nothing. I'm almost positive Edmund Burke was the one who said that.
Because we are sleepwalking through life.
Yes.
Not us only, everyone. Everyone. The purpose of government, since we mentioned government, we started off saying the separation between church and state is a fiction. It is. And before I get to that, we are all sleepwalking through life because it's more convenient, it's easier. Humans are amazingly good at adapting to difficult situations. You remove somebody's arm because he gets injured, he will continue to feel that arm for months afterwards. Literal feeling. And then one day, it's not there anymore. We're very, very good at adapting to things. So if you are fed a diet of lies, prepackaged lies, right? The government is here to protect your rights. The government is here to ensure that you will be able to think as you wish. We can create a whole list. You're taught that this is reality, and therefore it's reinforced every day in television and newspapers and the internet. So you just accept it. Why? Not necessarily because you're stupid, because it's easier. Humans adapt. And that's...
How's that working for everybody?
That's the path of least resistance. The problem is, and this is why I'm raising my voice, it doesn't work.
That's what I'm saying.
It does not.
That's why I'm here.
It doesn't work. And sometimes you just want to shake people and say, really? You're happy? You're happy living like this? No, you're not. Wake up.
No.
Wake up. So there was an excellent movie. I guess it was about either the end of the 90s or right after 2000. It was called A Waking Life. I don't know if any of you have seen it. It was done in animation. So the film was actually with real actors, but when they released it, they had animated it. So, you know, you have Ethan Hawke, who was one of the actors in the movie, and you see him in cartoon form. It's a very good film because it makes you face some of the things that we're talking about. Now, remember one part of the movie, which came toward the end, where the main character was saying that the thing is, I think I'm in a dream, but I don't really know, and all I want to do is wake up because I keep going from dream to dream. I want to wake up. And the person he's talking to, who of course is in his dream, says, well, I don't know what to tell you, just wake up. And you know, that's really how simple it is. But the act of willing yourself to snap out of it takes an enormous amount of courage, because when you do it, you experience some of the things that I was talking about when we started the show, which is I feel empty, you know, feel just
faith.
Yeah, I mean, this is what happens. You're thrown off kilter. Imagine you go through 40 years or 50 years of life as a believer, and then all of a sudden you start to doubt one thing, and then all of a sudden you find yourself doubting everything.
Everything.
It's not easy. So it's easy to just say, you know what, let me push all of this out of my mind. Let me push out of my mind what is obvious to me, that Jeffrey Epstein was murdered. He didn't commit suicide. Mm-hmm. That the reason he was murdered is not because people don't like pedophiles, which is the story that went around. Well, he could have been murdered in prison because they don't like pedophiles. Bullshit! He was not killed. He was not killed for that reason. He was killed because he knew too much.
All you have to do is pay protection in prison.
Exactly. I mean, come on. It's laughable. People need to wake up. Now, let's go back to church and state, because I don't want to go off on that, because it'll take us.
I just want to mention one thing about courage, though, and everybody needs to remember this. Okay? Right. Courage isn't a lack of fear.
Right.
Courage is the recognition that you're afraid and doing it anyway.
Right.
That's all it is. So right. Everybody needs to recognize, you know, don't lack courage if you're afraid right now.
But you know, that's a perfect point, because it says that in the Bible also. Do not fear, just believe. Right? Jesus says that.
Yeah, well, King James and whoever
That's
wrote the
easy.
Bible.
That's that's easy to say. You know, I am for lo the gospel according to Matthew ends. For lo, I am with you always, even to the end of time. Now, I know what it says, but it doesn't make me feel
Oh, that's
less.
not comforting?
No, it isn't. Because when I'm in bed at night and I'm afraid of something and I don't know what I'm afraid of, that doesn't give me any comfort. Now, that's what we need to look at.
Hollow words, David?
Well, no, I mean, why it is, it gave me comfort for a long, long time, but now it doesn't prevent me from being afraid or from feeling alone. So I think that, I have to look at the process that has led me here. All of us, you're right, all of us have these moments, have these periods in our lives especially when we go through stress, when we begin to question everything. What I'm wondering is whether what we're going through right now, being stuck in the house most of the time, going stir crazy, not making money, not knowing where our next meal is coming from, literally, whether that is not going to bring the whole house of cards down, because that's what humans are good at. They adapt, so they build structures for themselves that they think represent reality, but which really don't. I mean, you read Plato's cave story, where he's in the cave and you have things that are being reflected onto another wall, and that's what everybody sees, and that's what everybody assumes is real, but that's not real. It's, the thing that's real is what's being reflected. So that's what I think we need to start examining in our spiritual lives. What is it that we believe, and what is let's go even further back than that. What need do we have for a spiritual life?
You know what? Here, I asked you earlier about profound loss. Now I know Cheryl's had profound loss.
Yes.
Her brother was murdered in front of her, by the way.
Oh my God.
Okay.
So my question started way at a young age.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know my story, and I know some of your stories. So we've all
Yeah.
experienced loss, but here's something that because I unfortunately my brother died of cancer, and a friend of mine, she died of a couple of my friends died of cancer, and some, just old age and what have you. So I've had the I really want to say the good fortune of being able to midwife people into the next dimension.
Right.
And one of the things that I've noticed consistently is, in the end, it is truly always about love. And I think we're being forced to examine, because you can't really love your job unless the job you're doing is of some sort of profound thing that encompasses who you are, like these, amazing, extraordinary musicians, or usually for the most part, people have jobs to pay bills.
Right.
They don't love their work. And for the people who do, for the people that do, that's great. For the people that do, that's great. They have a divine mission, probably, and they're fulfilling that. So I think this point in time where we're all home and we're stuck,
Mm.
if you're not thinking about what you really love and what our value system,
Mm-hmm.
why are we pursuing money? David, you and I have been around obscene wealth. We
Yeah.
have been around, the private jets and
Mm-hmm.
the let's go to Disney World. No, hold on. Let's shut the whole place down and we'll go when nobody else is there kind of people, situations.
Right.
Okay?
I've been with people, just to give you an example, who would sit at the blackjack table or at the roulette wheel and throw down $15,000 or $20,000 at a time.
hmm
So
and it's nothing. Or tip people.
nothing,
And
nothing.
tip people.
Right.
I received from some people you knew. They sent me some gems once as a thank you, and I was like, "Take these back." I was like, "There's something wrong with these people." Yeah, because here's what happens: you start playing around with these people, they start noticing that you like money and you like nice things,
Yeah.
and they start giving you more money and they start giving you more nice things, and then the next thing you know, one day they're asking you to do something that just is not going to sit right in your soul.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
where it always leads to.
Well, let's go back, if you don't mind, to church and state. You've said it already. I'm just repeating what you said. It's a fiction.
Right.
There, and it's not because the money says "In God we trust" and because you have to take an oath when you give testimony in court. In order to have a religious organization in every state of the United States, you must incorporate, which means that the government has to give its seal of approval. In order to benefit from tax exemption, it has to be an organization where, I'm talking about a church, a religion, anything. You know, what is there's this one church which I read about, which was very, very funny. The one about the spaghetti god, the one that they walk around wearing colanders on their heads. Yeah, I swear to God, literally. And that the requirement that has been established is that the people who belong to the organization must have a good faith belief. So the courts and the authorities of the federal government or the state government, because these are incorporated at the state level, the federal government gets involved when it comes to giving a tax exemption. They don't look into the reasonableness of the belief. The way they get around it is they say, well, the people who are forming it have to have a good faith belief in what the religious organization is proclaiming. And I see one of our listeners just said the Pastafarians.
Yeah, that's Brett. That's, by the way,
No, the flying spaghetti monster. That's it. Pastafarians. Yeah, that's right. Okay.
that's the one. By the way, Brett is who made the banner for the show.
Oh, hey, Brett. Excellent.
I
Okay.
know, right?
So that's a fiction. Church and state are together, and if you want to get even more into it and move out of the United States, you go into the Scandinavian countries where from the moment you are born, unless your parents say otherwise, you're listed as a member of the Evangelical Lutheran Church of Denmark or whatever, and you actually are forced to pay a tax. So there is.
Wait, hold on, back up. I want to ask you, are the evangelicals over there like the evangelicals over here?
No, evangelical Lutheran, I'm just using that label to differentiate them from
Oh, but they are assigned a
standard
religion.
Lutherans. The standard Lutherans really come closer than perhaps any other Protestant denomination to Catholicism. I mean, they have the sacraments, they have confession, they have things like that. And then there are the evangelical Lutherans, which are like the Methodists or the Presbyterians or all of this. So that's the title that I'm using. But you know, that's where the government is actually forcing you into membership in an organization that you also have to support. I mean, talk about excessive entanglement, which is the phrase that the US Supreme Court uses when it looks at statutes that people say violate the Establishment Clause, you know, that Congress shall not make or abridge the right to have a religion. But the Supreme Court has said that the federal government cannot excessively entangle itself with religion.
Are you seeing, are you watching what Brett is posting? He says it's from this website. And I want you to, and I'm after you to let's get the 501c up. I'm telling you, David, I think it's time. I think people need, again, look at this. This guy's got, okay.
I see what he's reading. Yeah.
Okay, so what did we start out with? With Kronos and Poseidon. We talked about Kronos and Poseidon, and Kronos being the authority, the legal authority, with Poseidon being the spiritual authority. And when we talked about what's going on, like right now, which are slow-moving trans-Neptunes, this Capito Poseidon is about an ideology. This is, if you look at the little sort of crib sheet that I gave you, that's just the planets and the trans-Neptunes, which is where I really want to start retranslating. These are our groups, our corporations, and the Poseidon again is the divine authority. And what's happening to the Aries point is this need, this shift and need and change with respect to the divine authority that's out there and the ideologies that are being presented to the world. And honestly, David, it's the thing that if there is going to be salvation from this, what seems to be global coup to enslave everyone, it's going to be each and every one of us coming to terms with an ideology that works and that's sustainable for generations to come, and that sustains people as a whole and sustains the planet as a whole, and sustains us in these moments. The fact that people are so afraid really should tell everyone this is where we disconnected from love, because the only thing that's going to ever fill you and move you forward is going to be that sense of love. It's going to be that love for your fellow man. It's going to be love for your parents, your family, something that's going to get you to step out above, beyond yourself, and willing to kind of step in front of the bullet of the world.
Now, the problem with what you said is something we discussed already. God is love, and he that dwells in God dwells, he that dwells in love dwells in God, and God in him, right? That's what it says in the New Testament. In the Old Testament, the I'm reciting it in Hebrew, and then I got to think what it means in English.
Right, the translation.
You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and all your strength. Okay. We can go to the Quran also. There are references to love, that God loves those who do good things. When I say the word love, and we talked about this the last time, how do I know that you know what I'm talking about? How do I know that I know what I'm talking about? Words are symbols. That they do not themselves have any innate meaning. They have the meaning that we give to them, right? That's how languages develop. That's how languages change, actually, because new meanings are given to words that used to mean other things. For example, mad. I'm mad as hell. Well, mad originally means crazy, like psychotic. And it now means angry. So
Oh no, now it's changing again. Now it means something else.
now it means something
Yeah,
else.
now it's
Bad money.
mad is lots
So
of mucho.
Yeah.
now, so
Muito.
how do I know when I say the word I am joined to all of humanity in a bond of love? How the hell do I know that anybody knows what I'm talking about? My book, which I keep, sort of bringing up, but, it's mine, so that's why I'm bringing it up.
Have
It
at it.
ends,
I
it
support that.
ends, it ends with the line, spread the word that love is the bond of perfection. And don't forget that correction is bloodless. The struggle is internal, not physical, but it is no less violent. So love is the bond of perfection. I didn't come up with that line. It comes from the letter of St. Paul, one of the letters of St. Paul to the Corinthians, I think, first letter, I think. Anyway,
But St. Paul was a
but,
man.
but what does that mean? When I say to you love, we're joined, we have to join one another in the bond of love. We have to live in love.
Okay.
Love is God. God is love. How do I know that you and everybody else out there, when I get up to the pulpit and I say that, how do I know they understand what I'm saying?
Ah, very good.
That's the problem.
Nah, I don't think it's a problem.
God loves those who do. In Allah yuhibb al-muhsinin, in the Quran. For God loves those who
Who do
do
good deeds.
right. So what does that mean? What does it mean that he loves it? Is it romantic love? No. That's the first thing that people think when you say you have to show love to everyone. First thought that comes into their mind is not charity. And you notice how charity used to mean love and now means giving things to people that they don't
Yes.
work for.
Mm-hmm.
You see how that's changed?
Yep.
But let's go back to the point. How do I know that people understand me? You see, as long as you have this system where we pray to God, we reach out here, little ants that we are, to the creator of the universe, and we glorify him and we praise him. I can give you countless examples from all of the major religions. It says in the Quran, I created man to serve me. Actually, the way it's translated in English, because the word serve in Arabic, the verb to serve, abad, means to worship. I created you to worship me, right?
Oh, that's not love.
Well, this is what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
we have to first change the paradigm. I come back to the same thing we talked about last time, which is that the way we're looking at spirituality is we are here, God is there, and somehow there has to be a bridge, and that bridge is called love. But that is meaningless to most people because it's abstract. By the same token, if you say, well, God is everywhere, God is in you, you are God, you see immediately the problem, which is, well, if God is in me, Emmanuel, right? That's what it means in Hebrew. Emmanuel, God is with us, meaning in us. Okay? Now, if we say that, then we're opening the door to saying, well, then what need do I have to pray? If God is already in me, and God created me in his image and his likeness, it doesn't only say image and likeness, in other words, similarity. In this respect, the Mormons actually have an interesting point, which is that after you pass through this mortal life, you go on to an eternal life, and after so and so much time, which is never defined, hopefully you achieve the level of peopling your own universe in which you yourself are a god. That's a natural extension of the idea that I pray to God, but God is in me. The natural extension is I can also be, I am a god. It's not I can be, I am.
We all are.
Yes,
Yep.
but you see, this is the problem, and this is the impediment to spiritual growth, because it's easy to pervert. It isn't everything. Everything good is easy to pervert. And that's because we're human. So I don't have an answer. It's something that I struggle with, but my primary
But you're not
struggle.
supposed to. This is what we're supposed to learn from this, David, is one individual, which is why Bill Gates needs to go suck a bag of dicks. All right?
Right.
No, this is really important. No one individual has it all. We are all pieces of the same flippin' puzzle. And if we would snap out of it and wake up and understand that each of us is an intrinsic part to a beautiful picture, a lot of this absurdity and this bullshit would dissipate. This greed, so I brought your chart back up because, I make a lot of claims, which I've made for years. And I've said, look, give me an opportunity, give me a chance. If it takes you your whole life to live this, don't expect somebody to come along and read this in an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours. And for every one of the people who's here who's now studying the Uranian astrology, I noticed something that happens the minute they start studying it, David. They stop bothering me. They stop bothering me for readings. All of a sudden, they realize, holy shit, this is a lot of work. They become acutely aware of what an overwhelming amount of work it is. So people have heard about report writers and things. Well, I actually did one for somebody, and it's thousands of pages, David.
Yeah,
It
I
is.
know.
It's thousands of pages. And when we look at your chart right now, so I talked to you earlier about Kronos being the legal authority and Poseidon being the spiritual authority. So Mars is your work and what you act in. Uranus is what I have always said is a destiny, but it represents technology, astrology, groups, friendships, humanitarian purposes. So this is what's on this axis point. And then over here, here's your sun, here's your Venus. Your whole life, the very first thing I said to you is that you wanted to serve God, but David, you needed to serve the right religion. And sadly, it doesn't exist, David. And what your chart indicates is that this is about you really having to work on the part that says, you know what, I have to stop seeking this as something that's external to me.
Right.
We are in this crisis.
And
It's true. I'm a
that's
piece of
right.
a puzzle. I'm a piece of a puzzle, and I couldn't possibly have been given these brains and this intellect for no reason. I've wasted it among power and money, and I recognize that. And I recognize something else, and this is what we didn't finish before. In all of that
Mm,
power and money that we've seen, David, name one of
mm,
them that was happy.
yeah,
Name one of them,
I
David.
can't. I can't. I can't.
Neither can I. I.
But then I come back to the question, am I happy? I I mean,
You are at
are
times.
any are any of us happy? What does happiness mean?
Me.
Happiness is, the King Solomon story. It's this too in time shall pass. It's whatever it is. When you're happy,
See?
that's a state of grace. Be in that state of grace. Be fully present. Appreciate it, because guess what? There will be moments of pain. Into every life, a little rain must fall.
Well, and as we said the last time we got together, uh, we we tend to look at things in terms of black and white. How do you know that you're happy unless you have experienced sadness and pain? How do you know that you're healthy if you haven't experienced sickness? In other words, in order to fully appreciate the experience of one, you have to know the opposite as well. But not everything is opposite. For example, the mistake that most people make, you go on the street and you ask them, what's the opposite of love? They'll say hate. No, it
No.
isn't.
Yeah, that's a
The
feeling.
opposite of love,
That's hate
the
means you have
opposite,
passion.
right? Correct. And
Yeah.
passion in Latin, passio, means suffering. Okay? Because when you do love, you are suffering because you're giving up a part of yourself. I mean, that's the way that I look upon it. I certainly have felt pain in my life. I think there have been moments that I've experienced love as well. I think that's the part that I'm stuck at. Because when I tell people God is love, God is within you, the spirit, whatever you want to call him, is love. Love, live in love, live in love, love. I don't even know if I fully grasp what the meaning is. What I try to think about is the opposite of love is indifference,
Indifference, yes.
right? It's not hate. Hate
Yeah,
is
no, it's
simply
not.
another form of love,
Yeah, hate, it's too much
right?
passion to be the opposite of love. It can't
Right.
be. Yeah, that's why it can't be.
I mean, indifference. So I look at indifference. I've been indifferent to many things in my life,
Hmm.
many, many things. So I
Me
know
at times.
indifference. No, I really understand indifference. So now I want to move from that and say, well, in my struggle to define what I actually believe in, let me look at the opposite of indifference, which is love. And I still am not sure that I get it. I use the word all the time. I use it in conversations with friends. I use it in moments of reflection that, help me to love, help me to love, help me to love the world, help me to love those who have harmed me. Do I mean that?
Not
I don't
initially.
know.
Not
Yeah.
initially. Not initially. See, that's
And
the whole thing about forgiving people that have hurt us, is
right,
those first steps,
right.
particularly when we've been betrayed. No, we don't mean it. Hell no. That's part of the human experience. Is like, is that whole, you betrayed me,
Hold on.
you violated me.
I want to read what Brett wrote. He said, if you think you're happy and you may not know it, look at your chart.
Click, click, click.
Good point.
Well,
You know.
I have to tell you that happiness again. These are these moments where we have these states of grace. David, you not too long ago, I saw you were, I believe you went to Argentina, or you were somewhere in South America, and you were with
Yeah,
some
yeah,
friends, and you posted a video, and you were singing at a table
yeah,
in a restaurant with friends. Now, if that's not love and a state of grace, buddy, because I saw you, I don't know what
yeah.
is.
Well, and I should tell you that that picture was taken with a group of sailors who
Video.
had
There was
come.
video.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They came in by ship, as I remember, from Sri Lanka,
Okay.
and this was the port of Montevideo, so the capital of Uruguay.
Okay, so you were in Uruguay.
Shut up.
I didn't. I knew
Was
you
in
were somewhere. Yeah.
Uruguay. And we were sitting in a wine bar down by the port. We, meaning I and another person that I had met at dinner in the
Hmm.
marketplace. And these people then came in and they were very loud because, like you would expect from sailors who've been on a ship for 3 months, they were all drunk.
Hmm.
And somebody brought out the bandoneon, the accordion, and I started singing. And actually, the tango that I was singing is called La Última Curda, which means the last time I was drunk. Okay, so it's a very, very pathos-filled song because he looks back at all of the failed loves in his life. And anyway, it was very passionate, but it
Hmm.
looked like I was having a good time. You're right. So that proves my point that and love requires pain sometimes to fully appreciate. Yeah,
Were you having
the
fun?
people. I was indeed. And I didn't know that I was being filmed until someone forwarded the video to me on Facebook and said, I took this, I just want you to have it. And I said, oh my God, I shouldn't have been sitting down. I should have stood up. And, I was critiquing myself. And then I said, you know what? I'm pretty damn good.
Yeah. And this is
I
the
mean,
thing. Where do we get this need for perfection, David, but from TV, from a system that
Yes.
tries to tell us that we're not good enough, we're not pretty enough, we're not tall enough, we're not thin enough, we're not short enough, we're not fat enough, we're not, our boobs aren't big enough for women, men, your penises aren't big enough. I mean, seriously,
right.
We
guys,
don't
no
have enough.
joke.
Yeah.
Yeah, like who hasn't gotten particularly if you had any ads, remember the early days of the internet? They wanted to know if you needed bigger breasts and if you needed something for your erectile dysfunction. And I was like, oh my God, make up your mind. What do you think I am? Okay.
Right.
It's like, and this is, go get acid peels, get the hair extensions, get your makeup done, really,
Right.
why?
They told you to smoke
Why don't we
cigarettes, you
think,
know?
yeah, why don't we think we're good enough?
Yeah.
Right.
Who made us think that what we are and how we look has to be in some sort of prepackaged box? We are not Barbie dolls. We are not
You're not.
manufactured by a machine, and that's what they're trying to do. And this is wrong because I think the biggest thing that everybody needs to learn, and this is part of this whole political correctness thing that's kind of messing us all up, is
Mm,
our uniqueness exists
mm,
because we're all pieces of a really incredibly intrinsic and beautiful kaleidoscope and picture.
mm.
And we just need to kind of learn how to work together. It's sort of learning how to just hold each other's hands and make sure nobody breaks the chain or the circle.
Now, in talking about that, let me ask you something challenging. Does that circle, which is the human family,
Mhm.
Is that meant to include people like Hitler, Stalin, um,
Yes.
Jeffrey Epstein,
Yes.
uh, Bill Gates?
Hmm. He can suck a
That
bag. He can suck a bag of dicks, but that doesn't mean that it's not to include him. The reality is, he's here to teach us a valuable lesson.
Hmm.
They're all here to
And
teach
that
us. They're all here to teach us a valuable lesson because let me tell you something. Y'all need to be thanking him right now. Because if it wasn't for him, none of you would be
hmm,
awake. This woke
him
the hell
being
up.
Bill
Yeah,
Gates.
Bill Gates woke the
Bill
hell
Gates.
up out of a lot of you. And whether
Hmm.
you believe he's doing something or don't believe he's doing something, you're paying attention to who he is and what he's doing right now.
Yeah. I mean, that's the point that I get stuck at.
Well, I think we're
If I
supposed to be
accept,
stuck.
if I accept that God is love and that the bond of perfection is love, and that I am bound to the entire universe in
In
this
love.
in this divine connection, then I must also accept that that includes people whom I find to be detestable. Because it then forces me to look at myself and my passions, which, not only feeling, it means also my suffering. I don't know. I get stuck at it sometimes. Look, I am as guilty as anyone else of throwing words around without really appreciating the depth of meaning behind them. I think I'm more careful than many people, but I still am not immune to the problem. But let's face it, when we look at established monotheistic religions, and I'll stick with Christianity because that's the one that I'm most familiar with,
Well, it's the
and you're
umbrella.
told,
It's the umbrella for
yeah,
all of them. So all the
give
Christian ones, yeah.
right, give glory to God, glorify God, praise God, bless God. That's the one that gets me, which I talked to you about the last time. How do you bless God? Who am I to bless God? The creator of the universe, the creator of everything that ever was and ever will be, the all-seeing, the all-powerful, the all-knowing, and I'm blessing him and I'm praising him. Descriptions of heaven. I don't know if you've ever read some of the spiritual writers. They describe heaven as a place where you are sitting and for all of eternity praising God. Now,
I call bullshit.
yeah, forgive me for being a heretic, but that sounds more like hell than it does heaven. What
I
kind what
second.
and anyway,
I'm gonna second
if
that.
yeah, I mean, and if we are God, if God is within us, why does he need our praise? Why does he need our honor? Why does he need our I mean, again, I come back to the one, I can't even say it. We bless God. Blessed are you, O Lord God of the universe, who has commanded us to drink the fruit of the vine. That's the first blessing that's made on the Sabbath by the Jews. Okay? Blessed are you. Well, who's doing the blessing? We are. So now we're blessing God.
But
Well,
that's why we're here. David, this is why we're here. The conflict that you're having is in man-made construct having created these bullshit religions. And now during this crisis point for humanity in a global scale, never before, not World War One, not World War Two,
right.
no other war before, The
Right.
entire world is affected, and by the way, it's being carried instantly for those of us that traveled in the 70s and did the European thing. We all know what it was like and how much easier it became in the 80s and in the 90s and 2000, as it went, as things moved, it became a lot easier. But if
Right.
we knew what it was like to, have to get a message to somebody and wait a month to hear
Right.
something. Okay, so imagine,
Yeah.
200 years ago, it
Letters.
would take 6 months. Okay, now it's
Right. You
instant.
remember?
Go
Right.
ahead. Do I
Right.
remember what?
No, do you remember? This has nothing to do with religion or spirituality, but do you remember letters? Sitting down and writing a letter to someone and putting a stamp on it and dropping it in the box, and then
Gosh.
waiting a month or 2 months to get an answer, or worse, never getting an answer. I remember one experience that I had, which I relived recently because I was thinking of the person. I had spent a summer working in Paris. This was 1993. And I met somebody there who worked in my firm. He was my age, and we became sort of immediate friends. And we started hanging out together, eating together, going out drinking together. It made the whole summer just an amazing experience, just absolutely amazing. And I remember when I came back on the flight, I was in tears the whole time. I mean, I was literally inconsolable to the point where the stewardess, because in those days you didn't have stewards, you only had women, said to me, "Is everything all right?" And I said, yeah, I just, I left somebody that I really got very close to. And, she sort of looked at me funny. I said, no, I broke up, I broke up with someone. Oh, I'm sorry. And she kept bringing me wine and drinks. So I came off the plane and I was drunk. But I remember the next day, jet lagged, sitting and writing a letter with my fountain pen, 12 pages, right? I wish that I had saved a copy. I mean, because it must have been one of my greatest works. And I dropped it in the box and waited and waited and waited. And I never got an answer. You know when the answer came? When I saw this person 25 years later in Paris. I was back and my return was delayed, and I just looked him up and I found him on LinkedIn. And I said, oh my God, I don't believe he's still here. So I sent a message on LinkedIn, right, saying, hey, what's going on? Long time no hear. Well, it took about 30 seconds to get an answer. And he said, come out to the house. And I had never been to his house in Paris, but because when I knew him, he was living in an apartment. And I went there, and his wife and his kids and everybody were there. And we had an amazing reunion. And at the end of the night, everybody had gone to sleep. It was 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. There was a transit strike, which happens in Paris every Monday and Thursday. So I had to take a car back, an Uber, as it turns out. And when we were on the street, now get ready, he said, so I hope this makes up for the fact that I never answered your letter. He remembered from 25 years earlier that I had written him a letter and he had never answered me. That's the power. You see, that's something that I feel bad for people nowadays about. I'm talking people who are younger than we are, because that type of a discussion wouldn't be possible with someone whose only field of reference is emails, but not even emails anymore, text messages.
Text, yeah.
Right?
Oh, but some
They
people
don't
are
know.
are emailing. Some people are,
Yes,
and it's not the same. It's not. But
it's
David,
not the same.
it's
Yeah.
it's definitely not. But and there's problems with texting and with emailing because 90% of communication is not really words. It's our expressions. It's so much more than the words. It's why we're talking about the problems, which if we can go back to, by the way, again, the astrology, David, I can't help it. We keep coming up with the same problem, which is these man-made constructs have disappointed you and let you down because there's flaws in them. And this is something that I believe was handed to people, and again, people have tried to control it. And I have no desire to control this. It's one of the biggest reasons we're out here is because this removes the ability to control it. I'm out here showing people how to do it.
Right.
And I've said, I think we need I think we need a 501c corp. I think we need to take donations. I think we need to dismantle this because the Germans were the one to create it. And because it starts with that cheat sheet, basically the crib sheet, the planets in trans-Neptunes. What's that? A couple of pages. Since that's the original language. And this, David, this is for everybody who's studying the astrology. They can support this in the room right now. Brett and Cheryl and anybody, they know this is Poseidon and this is Kronos and this is Uranus and this is Mars and this is your sun and this is Venus. And they know that Kronos Poseidon, if they look it up, is the divine authority, and that Mars is your work, and that Uranus is technology. And David, look, buddy, I love you, dude, but technology, not your strong suit.
Just want to admit that.
In fact,
Correct.
you're perhaps your weakest.
Yeah.
But he caught out really quick when he muted us today.
He did.
Thank you.
He
Thank
did, but
you, Cheryl.
but we did a run through last night. We mentioned it, and then at 9:00 this morning or something, I gave him a run through, and then so it's just not your and David again. It's sitting here in your chart, and there is an element of metaphysics, and this is where I really want to talk to you about this thing you keep doing, which I've been poking you for years about this. This is such a strong indicator that you have got to stop pursuing other religions. You need to stop this bullshit. You really do. Okay? This is metaphysics. And this also indicates the ways that you become physically ill every single time there's some sort of fundamental error in whatever your faith position is at the time.
Yes.
Okay? All of a sudden, then something happens to you. You either get a cold, you get sick, you have something because you're shaken up, because you live for God. You really do. And you're looking for this connection, and this connection is so much about the thing that I talk to everybody about, which is that spiritual discipline and looking for the God in us, and to understand that it's in serving our fellow man. It's not that we're not going to be afraid. It's not that we're not going to be angry. It's not that we're not going to feel disappointed or be betrayed. And it's not as though I believe, abundance preaching is a big load of crap. The reality of it is that the moments of joy, for example, that you and I have had, those are things that you and I have never seen people that have had extreme wealth have.
Just give me 1 second. I'm putting you on mute for a second.
Okay. so as he's got me on mute, one of the things that every one of you needs to think about are those times where you've been able to really, really laugh, or even those moments where you've had extraordinary pain. These are the things that make you connect to who you are as a human being. Really, and
Yes.
if you're able to feel pain, it's because something somewhere, there's some connection to someone somewhere. There's loss, there's some connection to love, or a sense of loss. And when you're laughing and that sense of joy, where we've had that experience, and I can tell you, I've been around a lot of people with a lot of power and a lot of money, and you don't see that in them. What you really see is you see a lot of people that, as you get to know them, they don't trust each other, and they don't trust anybody. And I would rather live the life that I'm living
Okay.
and be unburdened with not trusting anyone. And David, this is what what I was really just talking about, is that feeling of not trusting anybody. I'd rather, what did
Okay.
money ever do for you? Money's going to pay your bills. Money's going to put a roof over your head. Money's going to pay your bills. But money isn't going to keep you warm at night. Money is going to help you maybe help other people who maybe need something. But money doesn't give somebody love. Money doesn't give somebody courage. Money doesn't give somebody faith. It doesn't do any of the things that people say right now people need.
Right. It's just an energy exchange, is what it is.
Although I will remind you of something that Bob Hope said once. I've been rich and I've been poor. Rich is better.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
But you know what? We could all truly be rich if we didn't have greedy assholes who think that somehow
Well,
their contribution to society is worth so much more than everybody else's. This thing of and I want to get back to this whole charitable donation thing, because all of philanthropy is these people paying themselves and holding on to their own money.
right.
And what I'm talking about is philanthropy, where we're saying, look, we want to be out here, we want to unfold this language, we want to maybe find what truly, what is the balance between man-made law and divine law? And can we find that language and that balance here on earth? And can we bring us around to a brighter day ahead?
Well,
I feel much better trying than not trying, because I can promise you, everybody I ever saw make that jump into the beyond and shuffle off this mortal coil, the only thing they ever regretted were the things they didn't do, not the things they did.
correct. That, I'm afraid, is going to take another show to discuss, because it's a huge topic. And the biggest part of discussing it is going to be how we define human, and how we define, that's the easy one, how we define divine.
How we define man-made law. What's fair, David?
Yeah, and what about divine law? How do we define that? I mean, this is a big question, and it's going to take
Well,
more
what's
time
everybody
than
doing? What's everybody doing during the quarantine, David?
Well,
Are
we
you,
are now,
are you booked, David?
well, we are now just hitting an hour and a half.
Right, and you wanted to only
I
be here for an hour. I know you had stuff to do today.
Yeah, I did, but I can still stay
Oh, good. I
around
hope
for
you
a few.
can. Yeah, good.
Especially because my friend Momo is here. My friend Pavel was here not too long ago. I see we have a few other visitors, which is nice. That's wonderful, actually.
Does Momo speak German?
Yes, he does.
So, we need Momo. What we need, David, is to no, really, David, we need to
I
we
know.
need to get to the bottom of this. The fact of the
Yeah.
matter is that we're presented, and isn't this okay, in law, it isn't a lot of what law is we're presented with problems that we're supposed to find solutions for.
Right.
Isn't that a lot of what business law is? Business
Yes.
law is, look, this is what we want to do. Now get out there and find some way to make sure that we're able to do this.
Well, it's meant to create, the purpose of law is to create an even playing field so that everybody operates in accordance with the same rules. So it provides uniformity, it provides predictability. Remember, humans are very adaptable, but one of the reasons that they're so adaptable is they like to know what to expect. So if you sign your name at the bottom of a piece of paper and somebody else signs it, that means you've agreed. And if something has changed hands, it means you can't then change your mind and say, well, wait a minute, I'd rather not do that. That's how the law of contracts
Right,
came about.
the three elements of the contract is the
Uh,
offer, the
all
acceptance, and then the consideration.
consideration.
Right.
But that's not, when we're talking about the intersection between human law and divine law, we have to ask ourselves the question, if we believe that God is all encompassing, all knowing, part of us, we are part of Him, we're joined to one another in this divine bond, then who is defining what divine law is? I mean, it can't be this wishy-washy thing. Well, it's what you should do. I had a professor, for example, a contract professor, who said all of contract law can be summed up in one sentence: do what your grandmother would tell you to do. And you know what? That's something I've actually used in court before. What would my grandmother tell me to do? You know? But that's not how you form a system of law. Divine law is not just sitting there and saying, well, this is a law that promotes love, because then we get back to the problem, the hermeneutic problem, the semantic problem of what love means, because I don't know, when I use the word love, if I know what I mean. So if I tell you I love my neighbor, right? That's what it says. It says in the Bible, it says you shall love your neighbor as yourself. Okay. So I love myself. I don't even know what the hell that means.
Because you're
When I
reading the
think of,
Bible.
no, but it's it's a semantic issue. In
No,
words do
you're right.
not have a life. They do not have a life of their own. They have meanings that are given to them, and these meanings change. What I mean by love, I'd have to examine my own experiences of love and lack of love to
What,
know what I mean by love.
want me to help you?
for, for
Hold on, want me to
well,
help
wait a
you?
minute.
I'll tell you what the chart
But
says you mean.
yeah,
You want to give it a go? You
yeah,
want to see what astrology says you mean by love?
yes.
Okay. So we go over here and we start here and we take a quick look because it just so happens that would be the focal point we would start at. And based on where this is in your chart, David, what you mean by love is something that encompasses a sense of, here, let me hit you with the little Hebrew, beshert.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay? It has to be a sense of beshert, and it has to mean that you
For
feel
those,
it
for
to
those
the
of you
point that you
who know
can
it,
act upon it, that it's meant to be.
yeah,
Beshert
yeah.
is meant to
Mhm.
be.
Right.
and that you feel that you can act upon it and that you can
Mm.
demonstrate it on a mental and physical plane, and that it is something that you can work with on a daily basis, and that it is something that is meant to transform you and everyone around you. How's that so far?
Yeah. Okay. Sure.
So that's what astrology says. But astrology, on top of it, comes and says, it belongs to this body. And this body says,
Right.
well, I'm going to have to really analyze this a lot. I'm going
Mm.
to have to think about this a lot. And then when we come back down here again and we look at this again, this says, I'm going to need reinforcement from some sort of metaphysical concept or feeling or something. You are looking
Mhm.
for that strike of lightning.
Mm. Yeah.
That's,
Aren't we all?
well, you think so, but not so much. You ever see like these women that and they call them gold diggers, and they'll be with
Right.
some guy, and she's stunning and young and beautiful, and there's not much, he's not much to look at, and he doesn't seem to have much of a personality, but he's got a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, who hasn't seen that? So everybody calls them gold diggers. Well, what if love to her is financial security and being able to go and buy whatever she wants? And that
Mm-hmm.
that's the thing that makes her thing-zing, and that she's totally passionate and hot for him because he's got a black card
Right.
and he gives it to her. It is entirely possible, and this is what people do not understand, is that love
Right.
means, this is what your whole statement is, it means something different to each of us. This is what astrology tells us. We're all looking.
Okay. So
Go ahead.
so when you're looking at a problem and you're saying how does human law intersect with or come close to divine law? If if the human element is subjective, it changes from person to person,
Mhm.
then what is divine law? You'd have to say then divine law, if we believe in divinity as what we're aspiring to, then it must mean that it's static, because that's what we're moving toward. We want to have standards. So my definition of love is different from yours, is different from the third person, is different from a fourth person. But what we're moving toward, what we're aspiring for, is a universal definition of love. You understand? It can't be
How about a
that
universal
everyone.
acceptance as long as we're not hurting other people and other things? It's not a
Yeah, but
universal
that's an
definition. It has to be an acceptance of each other.
that's an assumption also on your part that love does not involve pain. I would say love does involve pain.
Oh, no, no. I'm talking
Witness.
about forcing love, like I'm talking about, rape and molestation and murder.
Uh,
That's what I'm talking about.
right.
I'm talking about the kinds of things that plague society as a whole.
I, I, okay. I unfortunately do have to leave. I'm probably 30 minutes late, but that's okay, because I really enjoy this this type of forum where there people are writing in and people are talking, and you and I are talking, and Cheryl is here, and Brett is giving us all sorts of good information. We've had I think, a wonderful afternoon. I'd like to do it again.
I really want you to. We all
Yes,
want
yeah.
you to. I think, David, that the
Thank
that and let's reaffirm this with each other, that the purpose and the reason we're here is to help each other out, but to examine and
Yeah,
to explore these deep issues that we're all asking ourselves. And I think that we have answers. In the astrology is going to provide some answers, but we do need to go back, and I think we need to start with the German take what we know now, and go back with the German and go back with that little crib sheet and say, let's start there. Because
The foundation,
the foundation, because David, this tells me, and this is the thing I want everybody to really focus on, is that this tells me that the time is now for us to
Yeah.
be able to
Yep.
create groups and to affect change. And David, as you know, and anybody who's ever seen this, one pebble in a pond ripples. That's
Yes,
all it
of
takes.
course.
That's all it takes.
Yeah.
And all we
Yep.
have to do, if we're asking about love and divine love and all this great stuff that we got into, at the root of everything we're getting into is there's a love amongst each and every one of us because we really want to find answers. And we are looking to find answers and seeking to find answers external and internal to ourselves, and this is where we're going to be able to build the puzzle and build something new. So yes, please come back. Sorry for making you late. And thank you.
No, are you kidding? I enjoyed it.
And thank your friends for
Have
here.
a beautiful day.
Yes, yes, definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, and we'll speak soon.
Yes, and we'll do
Thank you,
some.
David.
Thank you, and we'll do some charts, and we'll see some questions. And actually, anybody who wants to, we're going to leave everybody with David. You know, you can follow David on Facebook, and we'll put your Facebook in there, and they can follow. Just mention that, yes, and if you're sending him a friend request, say you're from the show, because David keeps his Facebook pretty small. So, thank you, David, and bless you, and have a good day, and I'll speak with you later. So David's gone.
Oh, he got disconnected. That's fine.
Well, no, he had things to do. So, you know, great discussions we have with him.
Yes. Oh, yes.
And the astrology just it doesn't stop. I like this too because look at here's this Capito over here. We didn't even begin to touch like this. Here's the.
No, but
So
I
we've
like
got,
that you pulled that up as we're going along. You know, that was
it's
really
like
good.
the Capito, Poseidon. But the thing that I really want him to do is, I know because he is such a brilliant man. His friends are here, and his friends will attest to this. All of us, we all know this about him. I know that if he spends some time just looking at it, if he can clear his schedule and get things aside, it's going to occur to him. It's going to dawn on him because this in his chart, you know, he was destined for this. And what's really funny is my sun sign and my Poseidon is there, my Kronos Poseidon. We are a couple of years apart in age, but our planets line up in this way. And this Admetos
That's
here,
really...
this Admetos here this is the push that this is, you know, this is where everybody is stuck. Everyone is stuck in the world and in public, and this is going to drive us to this. And we don't know what's going on. I want to tell you guys, for everybody who's concerned about the states that are opening up, this is part of this. More people are going to die. That's, you know, sort of part of the plan. That's if we get out of, if we get out of David's chart, I did, before we even came on today, I was like, oh, let me, you know what? Let me take a look. Here's the transit chart at 1 o'clock today, or at noon today, which I've started putting everything at 0 degrees longitude and latitude because I really feel that that's way more specific to represent the whole world as anything else. And it is so much the time for everybody to be shifting their ideologies and for everybody to be looking deep within themselves as to what it is that they value. Because right now, what's giving you comfort? You know, what's giving you comfort? Your friends, your family, the things that are making you laugh, your concerns, being able to share your concerns with people who aren't being dismissive of your concerns and your fears.
Right, exactly.
Okay. The fact that we have a real problem with telling the truth. We've all listen, I've gone through it. First of
Yeah.
all, anybody who's ever done anything in sales, people who have done there's lots of jobs out there where telling the truth or just offering the truth and just life itself, we
Well, you're talking to somebody what was in advertising, so make it look good.
right. Sell, it doesn't matter. Be the
Yeah.
expert, be the
Yeah.
expert and be able to overcome anybody's objections. Whatever their objections are, your job is to overcome, be the expert and overcome their objections. Your job
Mhm.
is to sell something to them.
Yeah.
Why? Why do we have a job that's to sell something to them instead of, hey, if you need something, here it is?
Hmm.
At the end of this, we're going to learn to depend upon each other, and it's not the barter system that we're thinking we're going to get. We're just going to learn how to value each other a little bit more.
Right.
And we're going to understand that everybody's job and function has a value that maybe we haven't been taking a look at.
Right. And then they're going to realize what they were valuing around them, surrounded by them. All this materialistic stuff is not useful for their their situation now, the circumstance,
It doesn't, I'm going to tell you right now, nobody. I've been around people who've died before, and their focus is, it's they can't take anything they earned
We,
with them.
right.
And before they die, their focus will be, who am I going to leave all of my stuff to?
Yeah.
Who am I going to leave all of a sudden now, all of this? Now,
What am I
this
going to
is,
do with all this crap?
well, there's a rich irony in this right now because
Uh-huh.
there's a lot of people who are worried about how valuable their money and their assets are. There's a lot of people who's
Yes.
who's actual people who have, all right, so there's this 1% and this 2%, but there's people out there that, they're worth like 300, $400 million right now.
Hmm.
And they're sitting there right now and they're looking at everything and they're like, I don't know whether I'm going to be worth 300 or $400 million. 7 months from now, my
Right.
$300 or $400 might be worth nothing. Where am I going to find people that I can come and take care of my property, or money just isn't going to have its value? This is a problem.
Hmm.
Hyperinflation, which they're looking for this global wage and global slavery and global everything. Well, they're playing with the market. That's the only thing, astrologically, that's the only thing I don't understand. And one of the interesting things about the stock market is because it's gambling, it would be Jupiter Neptune. So Neptune
Hmm.
has to be in there. So one
Okay.
of the things that's always really, really hard to do is to predict like stock market trends. It's really hard, but common sense. You kind of look at what's going on out there, and you go, yeah, there's no way that they can keep holding this up.
Hmm.
We're on a fiat
Yes.
system. They're going to have to print money up. They do that. That's going to create hyperinflation. We have problems. The fact that the market is booming and that like 20 million people ended up out of work,
Out of
and that,
work.
yeah, and the government, it's like we're not paying attention to these things, and everybody's watching. The media's got everybody with the Trump show. And
Yeah.
again, I say to everybody, we're sitting there, and you guys are doing it. I'm watching people do it, and anybody who comes in to watch the show, or they listen to the show, you need to know that if you're out there and you're posting about Trump, you're part of the problem. If you are
Yep.
not posting about getting those kids out of cages, and if you're not posting about why is Bill Gates practicing medicine without a license, and if you're not posting about let's take a look at ID 2020, and if you're not posting about term limits in Congress, and if you're not posting about the squeeze in labor, and those people that have, 2 or 3 or $400 million, they own businesses, they employ people. They can't afford big, huge corporations, Johnson and Johnson and General Electric and Ford. They got bailouts. Guys that employ, 500, 1,000, 2,000 people, they didn't get bailouts. They got an offer to here. Go borrow money.
Yeah.
If you want to here, you can go borrow money and we'll you borrow the money. It's an SBA loan. Look, it's a small business loan. It's going to be very low percentage of interest, but you borrow money. Ford, we need to give them money. We have to give General Electric money. We have to give everybody, everybody who's on the stock market, basically, they get money. And you really need to be very concerned about things like PeerBright. PeerBright is a private company. That's not a stock company. And those guys are, they've got all these viruses. They're working on a vaccine supposedly, which is bullshit. I can't tell you. I've seen like 4 different coronavirus vaccines that were patented in 2015 in
So
Europe, in the
crazy.
United States, and they tell you that this is for the particular strain that goes from animals to humans, and they can't even get their story straight, and that's one of the things that's making me irritated. Like
Yeah.
David's like, why are
Yeah.
you so concerned? And it's like, I'm concerned because they're distracting people. We've got these children that I'm worried about, that I know these people are using them. We have too many things that are going on with people that are, the big thing that they want to hide is the thing all of these people in power want to hide. It's their sexual perversions, in particular with young
Yes.
people.
Hmm. Oh yeah. I would not doubt that, and I've believed that for the longest time. Longest time.
Yeah, and why are they in office and why are they so rich and why are they, why are they selling people out? We're gonna have to get, honestly, we're gonna have to get to the point where we realize that nobody's coming out of this unless we start telling ourselves the truth. It's not Democrats, it's not Republicans, it's a system of government, that's the legal powers that be. It's a system of government that's not governing anybody but us.
Anything.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
not they're governing us. They're not governing the problems. They're not governing, the FBI is not curtailing crime, they're managing crime. We heard Comey come out and tell us all the crimes Clinton committed, and then at the end of his big speech he says, but nobody and no reasonable person would prosecute this case. He never said she wasn't guilty. He was like, "Oh, she's
Right.
guilty. She did this and she exposed this and the bad actors and she had in 33,000 emails, we had this many exposures to this and this much this." They never used the term spillage because there's people in prison right now for spillage. So they never use that because if they use that, then all of a sudden everybody in Congress and the Senate, everybody's guilty and they all got to go to prison. And the media is like, they work for corporations, so let's not use something that's
So,
actually going to
yes.
convict everybody. That's something we should have asked David about. Well, David was here.
The language, right?
Yes, David, hey, if the media ever used the word spillage, what? If the media had ever told everybody spillage, what would happen? And the astrology tells us it. I'm telling you, if you're looking for hope right now, this is it.
Mm.
This is the present. Look up Zeus, Pluto. You guys don't have Ruth's stuff. I'm still working on that. So I will send you the thing from Ruth's work that if you don't have Aureus, but Zeus and Pluto is the present. It tells you right now.
Okay.
So this is the present right now out in the world. This is the groups. This is the work and spiritual ideologies. This is us being stuck. Venus and Mitos. This is us either being cold in love or deep, true, and profound love. We move this over here, and this is moving in closer. Look at this. So we got Venus moving in here. So Venus is coming in here.
Coming in.
Right. It's coming into this Venus Chronos. So we've got this Neptune Chronos where we have government and officials lying to us, lying all over the world, by the way.
Oh yeah.
Okay. And this also indicates that religious people are lying all over the world, religious authorities.
Surprise, surprise.
right? Nobody's surprised about that. But this Venus is moving in here. So this Venus is going to get here, and we're going to see this Venus hit in the course of the next, week or 10 days. So we're going to see a spike in deaths, people complaining, people about you're the people we love. All right. Just before that, just before it gets there, there's this noble love. It's gonna so just remember, every time it triggers any point here, or when Venus gets over here, or Venus gets here, every now and then it's triggering an opportunity or an option for us to really delve into our spirituality. And I'm not saying everybody's going to find it and everybody's going to
Right.
find some answer. I am going to tell you, though, for those of you that are struggling, if you keep seeking, and if you keep seeking other people, and you keep asking yourself the hard questions, and you keep waking up every day, and you keep
Oh,
a serious commitment to your spiritual discipline,
your
you're
screen just went, and I got something saying that error occurred, but
you're going to find comfort. What did you get that said
I
what
have
now?
an error occurred. Your screen. I don't see the chart. I mean, although I don't think you're talking about the chart now, but yes.
I am talking about the chart. I am. Let's see.
Well, I mean,
Do a refresh, and we're going to wrap it up anyway. But always refresh if you're having problems. If you're ever having problems, try refreshing your screen,
let's
because
see. Fixes.
one of the things that I do.
Oh yeah, yep. It fixed it. You're right.
Yeah, one of the things that I do is, because I have the low latency, so that I can show people and point to, without too much of a delay, point to something on the screen, like I'm pointing to. Right now you should be seeing me point
Yes.
down to the Mars Poseidon.
Yes, I see that right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if again we come back over here, I'm telling you guys, this is moving in. Every time it strikes here, it's going to strike a chord with whether or not we have a benevolent and profound love. This Venus Chronos is somebody who, this is a sense of benevolence, and we have to be careful about philanthropy and benevolence. And this is why I've been talking to David off the air. I've
Right.
been talking to David about, David, I think we need to just scrap what we're doing, and we need to go in with a 501c. I think you may need to be covering some law for some people, because one of the things we didn't get to today is, I was like, David, people have questions about, what about forced vaccines? What does the law say about this? What does religion say about this? David is one of those people who right now, I don't think he understands how much he's needed to step up and lead.
Mm.
And people don't need answers from some third-rate attorney. They need answers from some man who says, well, listen, I have researched the law, and this is what, if there is a problem, we can take this particular defense all the way straight to the Supreme Court. And that's what we need. We need people who are going to, well, we're talking about divine law, and when we go back and we look at David's chart, we see that he's going to help us with this. But if we look at what this is, guys, this is what it's telling us. This is going to be a rough ride. Okay? This is not something that we are going to be able to resolve today, tomorrow, this year, next year. This is something that we're being forced to address. This, by the way, is the midpoint on a 16th harmonic. This is
Okay.
this is a midpoint. This is gonna show up on a 16th harmonic, which is going to be equivalent to the Aries point. So what do you have? You have a karma and a history of power, of man-made power, that's problematic. And what are they trying
Huh.
to do? Yeah, look at this over here. What are they really trying to do? I'm telling you right now, they're trying to disable and kneecap everybody. They're trying to enslave everybody. So people who have more money, than say you're a millionaire, you're, person who's got 10 million or 20 million. Your people that have 100 million, 200 million, 300 million, they're a little bit worried right now because they realize that billionaires are pulling the strings, and all of a sudden they're realizing how many billionaires there are in the world. How did that happen?
Yeah.
How is that there's so many people who didn't eat yesterday and won't eat today and probably won't eat tomorrow, and there are people dying of hunger, and there are people with empty mansions? And I'm not, listen, if you've worked hard and you've invested well, you're entitled to live really, really well. But if the way you're making money is off of the backs of other people, that's wrong. And if you're not willing to pay people a fair day's wage, the fact that people that are billionaires are saying, you know what, $15 an hour is too much. No, that's bullshit.
Yeah, oh my God. Yeah, let's try to pay rent, car.
No,
It's just crazy, crazy.
Mnuchin thinks $1,200 is. I saw
Yeah,
something that
yeah.
in a headline where he thought $1,200 is good for a couple of months. This
Yeah.
guy, let me tell you something. He hasn't had a lunch that was $1,200 in the past week.
So insane.
Okay, a
The
lot of you guys have
disconnect.
never been, yeah, a lot of you guys have never been in a restaurant where they bring out a $400 glass of whiskey when somebody orders whiskey. A lot of you guys have never gone someplace and had, lunch or dinner for two that amounts to $1,500 or $1,800 or
Right.
$2,000. David and I have been to places. David and I have eaten at Windows on the World. David and I, in different places, in different situations, he and I have rubbed up against money and power. And one of the things that he and I have talked about is, look, at the end of the day, these people are not different from us with the exception of one thing. They're miserable. They're
Oh yeah.
always, oh yeah, they don't have a sense of trust for other people. They're always worried about who's stealing from
Mine,
them.
mine, 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 mine,
Yeah,
mine.
yeah,
Yeah.
they're worried, and they're worried because in a lot of cases they don't want to admit that they stole from people to create their wealth. It's like you might have stolen $1 at a time from 700 people a day, but you still stole. You don't want to admit it. You may have to now. You may have to realize how this little food chain works. That you're eating people that pay mortgages while you can go buy a house and you don't have to pay a mortgage. You're eating people who can pay mortgages, but remember something, there's billionaires that are looking to eat you right now. They just made you, they just killed your business. They just forced you to go, buy, if you got to go borrow money to keep your employees, or maybe your employees are they're collecting unemployment, and in some cases they're making more in unemployment than they made while they were working for you. So if you offer them a job right now, they may not be in some big hurry to come back and work for you. That's going to create a lot of division amongst people, or the people that are working are making less than people that are unemployed.
Guess who bought a $16 million apartment in New York while this is all going on? Bezos.
I have to tell you something. I have a theory. And I mentioned this to David, and I was like, I hate to be really paranoid, but Bezos and Gates were both vying for the same Department of Defense contract.
Ah,
So this is bioterror, by the way. And that would fall under a defense contract. And WikiLeaks produced a lot of information about bioterror. So that's one of the reasons poor Julian's in Belmarsh.
yeah.
But one of the other things is that Bezos was very involved with the CIA and facial recognition software. And then, of course, Mark Zuckerberg got into it, which all those filters, guys, all those filters you guys are using on Facebook, that's you helping the CIA with facial recognition software. Y'all need to stop that shit. Okay?
What is that? What is that?
Those filters that people use on Facebook,
Oh yeah, I don't do that stuff. No.
Yeah, and all those
Yeah. Oh
Snapchat
no, and I don't
filters.
do that. I don't do those memes or those name test games. And although I have, like,
Every
in the
now and then I'll do
past,
something
in the
that's kind of
past,
silly, and
yeah.
I'll tell you, I'll kind of quit with it, and then I realize it's like, these are all algorithms, and they're trying to figure us out, and this is all about artificial intelligence. But so Bezos and let's get back to Bezos and Gates. Bezos and Gates, and you can verify this on WikiLeaks. Bezos and Gates were both up for this Department of Defense contract. So you know, I said to David, I said, in the macho dick pissing contest game of life and big business and billionaires and the way these guys think and how they operate, it's entirely possible because Gates got the contract, by the way.
Oh,
Bezos.
I'm just reading. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but my Bezos is going to try to test all his employees for this virus. He's
Okay.
pushing to test all his employees and see what they learn from it. Learn with quotes.
Well, because they're in a macho dick pissing contest with each other. So I suggested that Bill Gates is like, well, I got the contract now. Let me show you how I'm going to mess with your facial recognition software project.
Mhm.
Everybody wear a mask.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's hilarious. My phone is like, you want to use your passcode?
Okay.
Because I have that on my phone, like you said, just
Yeah.
crazy.
So I don't want to be paranoid.
No, but there's a healthy level of skepticism and research.
Well, there is, and David was talking about having this, his faith being shaken because he knows he's done contracts. He and I have seen things. He and I look at stuff, and we just look at stuff, and we're like, oh my God, and why isn't the media reporting on this? We find things all the time, and we don't see the media reporting on it, and that scares us more than anything. Is we find evidence of things
Mhm.
that we know the media should be reporting on, and they're
Right,
not.
right. And what's even scarier is that people are eating it up, hook, line, and sinker. That's the scariest thing. And if you put the doubt there, you're either, you know, uh, uh,
Yeah,
an
you cannot.
anti-vaxxer or something.
Yeah, you
You're.
cannot. You cannot say anything against Gates. In fact, that
Mhm.
Robert Kennedy Jr., you say anything about real time, which they say that's Russian TV. Listen, I don't care who's telling the truth. Here's the problem that nobody seems to think about. I don't care who's telling the truth. Whoever it is, that's who we need to be listening to.
Right, right, correct. It's not right. Even if it comes down to God, Trump or somebody,
I think and I'm going to tell you, anybody who's, if you're posting, if you're on Facebook and you're sharing CNN stories and MSNBC stories and ABC stories, you're clicking, you're helping them, you're giving them
Yes,
money.
yes, you're giving them, yep,
You're
your
giving them all money,
advertisers are getting paid.
and they're all connected to each other. And the
Yep,
only thing that I do that has anything to do with the media at this point is I tweet them directly on Twitter.
I do too.
I and as you know, if you've seen me, I
Yep,
keep asking them if they're on vacation. I want to know when they're going to start doing their job. I'm a little bit
I know.
disturbed.
Yeah, I do the same thing. I go right to the source. I see way too many people complaining, and you do not see their the name of the person they're referring to directly, spoken to. You don't see that,
And,
and I'm like, what's the point of that?
and I'm sure, I am 100% sure that this virus, that a huge part of what's going on here is this is a great distraction from whatever the hell is going on because Epstein, I promise you, is that is the story that ties every piece of crime and corruption and vile thing that's going on in the world goes straight to Epstein and Gates, and their relationship is undeniable. He says, "Oh, I took a couple of meetings with him."
Yeah,
He
yeah.
took more than a couple of meetings with him, and I don't see the media asking this guy questions. And I've said it over and over and over
Let's
again.
test your little sex slaves.
Well, it's Here's the thing, they'll go after the girls who brought Epstein other girls, but they won't go after Prince Andrew. They won't go after
Yes.
Bloomberg. They won't go after all of the men. Spacey, the people that they're throwing to the wolves, those are the people that they think are the weak links in the chain. Those are the people
Yep.
that
The
they're like, you know
scapegoats.
what? Those are the people that we believe are going to snitch on people,
Hmm.
or those are the people who have information. All I know is this: that's the one thing people don't want their sexual predilections, particularly if it's with children, if it involves animals, if it
Yes.
involves, mutilation, if it involves some sort of kinky kind of thing that somebody's going to be embarrassed about. This is the thing that they don't want out there. And they'll do whatever, they'll pay whatever,
That's
they'll sell
yep.
you or
That's the
me.
only thing that'll ruin them. That's what it is. It'll
Well,
ruin
will
them.
embarrass them.
Hmm.
If they get caught cheating on their wives, like I said, it's,
Yeah,
that's a
that's great.
divorce. That's a
Yeah,
divorce. Or
that's
maybe
simple.
marital. Plenty of men have been caught cheating and the women stay.
Yep. Yep.
They weather the storm. The storm they can't weather is the one of public opinion.
Deviants.
Yeah, the one of public opinion that is like, okay, you know what? We've all got a little kink. Who hasn't had a few fantasies? Everybody's like, hey, you know what? Whatever makes your thing zing, none of my business. What goes on between two people, not my business, not my business. Right up until you start bringing
Yep.
children, and then you start saying, wait a minute, what's going on? We're talking about rape and look at Hollywood. Look at all these people, by the way. Roman Polanski raped and sodomized a 13-year-old girl. And after 20 years, people in Hollywood, Meryl Streep and Whoopi Goldberg, all these people are like, he's been banished long enough.
It's like, okay, yeah.
It's like we should we
So
should forgive this. That ought to tell you guys. That should tell you a lot about who it is you're looking up to.
yeah.
Everybody, you need to go back to the award where Roman Polanski, I forget what year he was given an award. He couldn't come to the United States and accept the award. Somebody accepted the award for him. There was a big speech, and you need to pan through the audience and everybody who clapped right there.
Those are
That's one
the
of your Hollywood pedophiles, my
yeah.
friends.
Yeah. The class of people that with all their money combined can solve everything. Yeah. But you're poor and sitting home and
Yeah,
starving and
yeah. Well, but here's the thing: this people like me, I don't. This is the problem with society. Everybody worships those people. Nobody wants to be the person who says, "Yo, Oprah, I got some questions for you. There's a few
mm-hmm.
pictures of you with Harvey Weinstein, and there's some young girls there, and you seem to be very buddy buddy with him. And, let's talk about how many times you heard the rumors about Weinstein. Why did you ignore it? You, in particular, you had a history, your own history of abuse. Let's talk about the girls in your school. Let's talk about the stories that have come out of your school and
Mm-hmm.
girls having been molested from your school in Africa.
Yeah.
And why would you go halfway around the world and help a school in Africa? Why aren't you doing something here in the United States? Does that have something to do with laws? What about the many, many times? Here's the problem: all the times that the media has covered for pedophiles and for stories that were leaking about pedophilia or sexual molestation. And why is this a big focus? Because right now there's this guy who was murdered in a federal prison, maybe, by the way.
Maybe.
There's a
Yes.
well, there's a video.
Yeah.
There's a
That
video of the day that the media showed a video, and I have it somewhere, which I posted it on my page. There's a video that they showed when Epstein was murdered of paramedics and a Bureau of Prisons guard wheeling Epstein's live body. They're giving him chest compressions, and they got the bag on his mouth. And that was
And he was supposed to have died in prison.
well, he was supposed to have died in prison, which I can tell you as somebody who's had the unfortunate experience of being present in homicide scenes and having to see bodies wheeled out of places on more than one occasion in my life and been in federal prisons. That's not how those things work.
So crazy.
A body goes out in a body bag on a gurney, but in a body bag. And there's crime scene pictures of the body. There's no crime scene pictures of a body. There's pictures of him being cut down. But then there's the thing, well, they found his lifeless body. Well, if you found his lifeless body, he's dead. You determine that he's dead. You don't move him. It's a crime scene. And if he's dead, why are you bagging him? Why are you doing chest compression? I'm sorry. And you know what? He's not the right color to be dead in that picture.
It's crazy. That is so
There's
insane.
like too many. And here's the thing. You know, nobody in media is asking the right questions. Again, it's questions. It's questions. And David's like, why are you so bothered by this? It's because I know. Because I was a 16-year-old girl, because I'm so lucky that I'm here right now. Because so many times people tried to pimp me out, hook me up. I was going to tell the story while David was still on. I stopped at Helmsley Plaza, which is something else now. It's just a couple of minutes away from St. Patrick's Cathedral. And back in the day when I used to like to go into Catholic churches and light candles, so I stopped at St. Patrick's Cathedral. I lit a candle. I said some prayers. I was alone in the church. And I walked over to Helmsley Plaza to meet with somebody. And I was supposed to meet them for cocktails. I walked in, and the bar was full, and it was, cocktail hour. It was New York, and I was young. I was like 20, 21, 22 years old at the time. So I saw how full the bar was. And I was like, I'm not going in there. There was like 11 women, and it was like 30 men, all dressed in, Wall Street suits. And it was the early 80s, and people were still really dressing up back then. So I sit down, and a chauffeur comes over to me. And he says to me that Mr. Iacocca would like to see me up in his suite. And I was like, excuse me? He says, Mr. Iacocca would like to see you up in his suite. I was like, that's nice for Mr. Iacocca. And I think this guy's kidding. No, I really do. I think this guy's kidding. And I'm waiting for a friend of mine. The whole reason I'm there is I'm supposed to meet a friend of mine. We're going to have drinks. He's like, meet me at the Helmsley Plaza. I have stuff to do that, just meet me at the Helmsley Plaza. We'll have drinks and, we'll go to dinner. We were going to go to dinner from there. But it was just like the closest place to meet in the city was meet me at Helmsley Plaza. I was like, sure, no problem. I'll stop by St. Patrick's. I'll say a couple of prayers. I'll light a candle. I'll head over to Helmsley Plaza. So I kind of laugh. And a couple of minutes later, he walks up to me again and he says, Mr. Iacocca is waiting for you. And I was like, I told you before, good for Mr. Iacocca.
That is nuts.
Right? He comes back over to me as my friend is approaching. Like I see my friend walking towards me, and he comes back over to me and he says, aren't you here for Mr. Iacocca? And I stand up. My friend arrives, and my friend, gives me a kiss on the cheek. And now my friend is extremely well dressed, and he's wearing a really, very expensive Patek Philippe. Okay. He's wearing like a $40,000 watch.
Crazy.
Right? And he's like, what's up? And I said, I was like, here, this guy, he's I guess he's Lee Iacocca's chauffeur or something. I don't know. Do I look like, and I said to my friend, do I look like a hooker or something? It's like, and he says, he says, no, he says, but you're hot looking, right? It's like, no, but you're hot looking. It's like, well, I was like, so you're sure I don't look like a hooker? He says, no. I was like, well, this guy seems to think I'm a hooker. And the man apologizes. He says, "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." Now, this is what he says before he leaves. He says, "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." He said he says there was supposed to be a very young brunette here for Mr. Iacocca. I'm sorry. I thought you were her. He said, and those were the words he used. There's supposed to be a very young brunette here for Mr. Iacocca.
Hmm. Oh no.
Yeah, like young girls, young boys.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
young,
just skin
young.
crawl.
It is. It's disgusting. And the fact of
Ugh.
the matter is, and this is why, everybody was minding their own business. Nobody cared until somebody's children got stolen or all of a sudden it affected somebody close by. And the reality of it is that this has been going on. Do they traffic these children? Yes. Does some of these children end up dead or used up? Yes. And
Shit, it's a
and
freaking island. God knows what went
it's
on
not just
there.
the island. What do you think? That's the only
Well, no,
place?
no, I'm just saying, like where his ugh. I'm just looking at it right now. That's why I'm just thinking what
It's
could have went on that place in that
it's
place.
it's everything you can imagine, and these people have disgusting, in some cases they have some very, very disgusting sexual,
Bio.
well, they have some, interesting, let's just say some of their tastes are criminal.
Yeah, yeah.
and
Oh, I
and
no doubt.
and that's part of the problem, and everybody's just sort of ignoring it, and this has been going on for a long time, and this is something that has
Still
moved
goes on
mountains.
and
Yep, it's moved money, it's moved mountains, it's moved politicians, it's created scandals and secrets, or the avoidance of it.
created a Trump presidency is what it created.
Well, the Trump presidency is the distraction. He's the
Mhm.
best distraction in the world because you guys are all doing that instead of looking for, Trump. Um, he was accused of being a 13-year-old, accused him of rape at Epstein's, by the way, in Palm Beach.
Surprise.
So Trump's ties to Epstein are not nearly as significant as everybody else in Congress and the legislature. And I'm telling you, everybody needs to get honest with themselves about what's going on. And what's going on more than anything is that they're using this to manipulate people. And you should just be asking yourself lots of questions. And then, I'm going to let everybody go. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to keep on David. I'm going to keep trying to work with other people. It's really important that we begin to bang out this astrology and restructure how we're looking at this, because this is very key. This is telling us that we're supposed to create groups, or supposed to create a new ideology. This is telling us that we're dealing with man-made construct and power and deep forces and karma, and that a lot of us are going to be imprisoned. Saturn Volcanus is to be imprisoned. This Saturn Volcanus coming here to this.
Yeah, isn't
This
that
is slow
insane?
moving. This is going to come back. This is here now. This is going to come back this way, then swing back this way.
Then swing back, right? The
And when
retrograde, yeah.
and when Jupiter and Saturn are there, we're going to see this groundswell of just them imprisoning a massive amount of people. And I'm telling you right now, right after the uh, election and the inauguration, we're going to have huge problems all over the world. And the question is whether or not we're going to have a problem here. I really, it's important that I get a group of astrologers that are very serious about looking into where this is going. It would be nice if astrologers would stop worrying, about
Right.
being famous and making money.
Yes.
And it's like, look, you can't even read a chart yet. Why don't you see if you can't, sit down at a table and let's do some research. You're getting a little ahead of yourself. If you can't read a chart. I
Right.
love when they tell me, well, I'm going to have to do some more research. It's like, how are you going to do that when you can't even read a chart? And this is a problem, as you know. There's
Oh
a,
yeah. Yep.
there's a huge problem. Anyway, we're going to let everybody go. We'll be back here maybe one other day this week. I'm going to talk with David about getting a scheduled day for like a group chat and some
Oh
prayer.
yeah. Yeah.
and some
Well,
prayer. David really would like to start doing a prayer thing. He would like to
oh,
start doing a prayer
yeah.
group. And he's I have to tell you, he's an extraordinary person to pray with. Okay. As somebody who I've been really blessed to be able to pray with him a couple of times. So we want to get him back on his track too. So I'm going to work on David a little bit this week and see if we can't get a day and a time with David's schedule where
Yeah, and
David
let's talk too. So we
yeah
can.
commits and we'll be back here. Of course, if nothing else, we'll be back here Friday. Which I was going to talk to you, see if you have a couple of minutes at some point in the next day or so, or even after the show, about maybe shifting some show times around and letting anybody know if you didn't get a reading today, I apologize. Send us your data and your information in Facebook. If you like the show, like us on like the show and leave a comment and question.
Notifications, like the show, follow
And
us.
and did we have David's
No, I don't have his info up there. I
did we
don't have
put
it. I got
David
to add that onto what I have here. I don't have his
David's
Facebook.
which I
Wait a minute, let me pull it up. Oh, what am I doing? I can just go to Facebook. What
yeah,
was
I
I
know
thinking?
I didn't put the things in that I wanted to put in today because there's so much to get to.
Yeah, no, I know. And it goes, and then it takes on a life of its own once we get there.
That's David's Facebook for anybody who wants to follow
Oh, you
David on
did. Okay,
Facebook.
cool.
Yeah, and make sure you send him a message in the friend request that it's, my Astro World show or friend of Anna's or friend of Cheryl's or friend of, you know, want to be a friend of yours, David?
Yeah.
He he speaks more languages than we all do, so you can do that in multiple languages. That's David. Cheryl, before we go, Cheryl reads tarot.
Yeah,
Cheryl does
I do
readings.
Lenormand. Yeah, yeah, Lenormand, which is a more practical reading system than the more esoteric tarot. Even though I know tarot, my Lenormand is but yes, I do, and I'm going to post my info. So if anybody's
Do that.
interested,
Yeah, do that. They can follow you. And actually, what I'm seeing from Lettermond is it's kind of like the Uranian astrology of
yes,
tarot.
keywords. Yep, yeah, yeah. It's pretty interesting stuff. Yeah.
I have to send you because I have it. I have the Romany Gypsy book
Oh,
for
cool.
American playing cards.
Oh, that's really neat.
And I keep underneath my rosary beads from Lourdes, which still smell like, you know,
Oh, that's so.
roses, right?
Oh,
So
yeah.
underneath my rosary beads from Lourdes, I keep, which I just opened them up so I could smell them again. I keep a deck of American playing cards because and Alejandra, the little Cuban card reader from Hialeah, she wrote
Yeah, the one
Spanish.
that you mentioned.
Right,
Yeah.
she read Spanish playing cards, and she would she would use the cards and like show something and say, "See that represents the breast. See that picture," and you would be like, "Oh wow, look like literally every little detail." She
Mhm.
knew and she understood the playing cards, and of course, I was fascinated when I went to Europe and I saw the gypsies actually read Spanish playing cards, and I brought Spanish playing cards back to my father. I brought a bunch of decks back to my father when I first came back. But I do that because um, these were all at the beginning of time. You go back years and years. These were all methods of divination that I believe people who felt uh, that leaders were not telling them, like, look, I think you were around and the language of God was handed to you and you're kind of not telling us something, so we're going to try to figure it out ourselves.
Mhm.
These were just other methods, and this is again what has to happen with people now is we're all supposed to be kind of trying to figure out answers and find our place under the sun,
Yes.
right? and and we're going to learn all of the things that have been fraudulent and marketed for the purpose of selling something as opposed to marketed for the purposes of helping people.
Helping, correct.
Right. and truth. These are the things that are going to begin to unfold. So, let people know what you're doing out there. I While the show is about the Uranian astrology and we're here to demonstrate it, I definitely am all about promoting everybody who has whatever your skill set is and your gift is.
Right.
We're here to encourage and share for each other, because part of the problem is that corporations are trying to take over for everybody, and each of us has we each have a small piece of the pie and a puzzle and a little light to shine, and we're all here for something.
We're all in that little pond with the ripples.
Yeah, well, and we all have a function and a purpose.
Yep.
Not look, not everybody is supposed to be a rocket scientist, and not everybody is supposed to be a line cook or a waiter, and not everybody is supposed to be a concert pianist.
Right. Correct. Or
And
yeah.
but we're all supposed to help each other find our way. And if we all help each other find our way, we're all going to be in a much happier world. If you can't do anything for yourself right now, see what you can do for somebody else, and
Somebody
watch.
else.
Yeah, watch how things get better. And help each other out. Spread the word.
That's a good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I posted. It's a good way to end the show. Definitely a good message.
I don't see your Facebook page in there.
Yeah, I posted it up there. You might have a delay or something.
Yeah, I do, because I got all this computer stuff going. Send us, messages. Leave us a thing in our Facebook page, and private messages if you want to send us for the next show, for the next time, and we will get to readings. Cheryl, thank you again.
Thank you,
David.
Anna.
It was great, having David again. We're going to have to bring David back here, and thank you everybody for joining us today.
Yes, thank you. See you soon.
Bye bye, folks.
Bye.
Have a good week. Be safe. Be blessed.
You too.
Bye bye.
Bye.